Howdy BookTube, Nikki here with my March wrap up. It's happening on time. 31st of March today. Filming this video. What? So much. I read a total of 7 books and 2 comic books, which is totally good after a little bit disappointing February. I read some good books and I read a lot of books and I'm gonna share them with you now. The first book that I read was an arc that I received by Anne Stampler. It's called How to Disappear. Not to be confused with How Not to Disappear, like another soon to be released or recently released YA book. And I keep getting confused. Wait, that's a different cover. Oh, that's a different book. I'm not gonna lie, I pretty much received this arc because I have almost the same name as one of the protagonists, and that's my entire qualification to review this book. I think it's gonna be released in June. I'm gonna put the exact date somewhere so that you have the knowledge. I was a bit conflicted over it. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it's not something that I normally read. I'm gonna do a dedicated review for How to Disappear, but for now I'll just give you a couple of deets. The book follows 2 teenagers. We get both of their perspectives, points of view in first person throughout the book. One of them is Jack, and he comes from a criminal family pretty much, and his brother is in jail, and he goes to visit his bro, and his bro's like, yo, this chick killed another chick, you need to kill that chick or someone's gonna kill mum. And the aforementioned chick to be killed by Jack has gone on the run, and so he's chasing her. She's trying to get away. We're all trying to figure out what the crap happened. Overall, I gave it 3 stars. It took me a while to understand that we weren't supposed to get the big picture until the very end, but the way that it came together in the end, I did like that. This is probably the YA book with the most distinctive 2 points of view that I've ever read. They both speak in first person, and one of my gripes a lot of the times with split POV books is that I get them mixed up and I find their voices aren't distinctive enough. But they were distinctive enough that I absolutely hated Nicolette's voice, but I didn't mind Jack's as much. But I'll be releasing a review for that closer to the release date, so keep your eyes peeled. That's gross. I don't want to peel my eyes for no one. This month I finally finished Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Jane Austen and Seth Grahame-Smith. This is Jane Austen's original Pride and Prejudice, and Seth Grahame-Smith threw some zombies in there because YOLO. I really like the idea. It's pretty fun. I love the illustrations. But the thing is that halfway through, the gimmick of zombies kind of wore off, and I found myself just wanting to read Jane Austen's story. Another thing is that Seth Grahame-Smith didn't just add zombies, he added like other things surrounding it so that zombies made sense. But part of that was having characters kill humans as well. I feel like some characters came off in a way that actually changed their characterization, and I didn't like them as much. Lizzie straight up kills a ninja, and I'm like, that was a human ninja. Is that cool beans? Overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's a fun book to own, and it was a fun to read. It's sort of like a gimmick that I enjoyed. I also finished Who's Afraid by Maria Lewis. Maria Lewis is coming to a convention very soon, so I was very excited to read this book so that I could meet her, and I enjoyed it. It is a story of Tommy, who lives in Scotland. She's half Maori, New Zealander. Her mother dies, so she goes to New Zealand to find her estranged father, but it's so not for the reasons you think. Oh my gosh. Anyway, she goes to New Zealand, finds out some So she goes to New Zealand and finds out some troubling family secrets involving werewolves, and like her being one. For me, this book is an example of a book that I super enjoyed, but I had to rate 3 stars. I really like Tommy, first of all. She's a very cool character. She's got blue hair. She's really fun, and we get to know her really well, and we get in her head the whole time. And because of that, because she was such a developed character, some of the other characters to me fell a little bit flat. Like there's a romantic element, which by the way, no insta love. But it took me a while to get on board with it because I just wasn't feeling the other character. I was like, yo, I don't know you well enough. I know Tommy really well, but not so much you. It does get a little slower at times. I think there are a couple of times in the book where it got a little bit pacey, and we did find out a lot of details about Tommy, to the point where I think some people will be annoyed by it. I know that some people probably don't like finding out what every piece of clothing that a character's wearing. They're just like, get on with it. I don't care what band shirt you're wearing or whatever. I like that. She has a cool sense of style, so I was like, bring that on. My favorite thing about this book is that it was just unexpected. I haven't really read a lot of new adult urban fantasy. This did break through my expectations at times in a way where it didn't necessarily blow my mind. Little expectations just broken. What? Like the reason she goes to New Zealand. There's also sexual assault kind of mentioned in this book, but again, not in the way that you think it's gonna play out. At least I didn't think it was gonna play out the way it did. Probably the last like 100 pages, what is happening? I didn't see any of this. I don't know what's happening. I really enjoyed it. I think I actually gave it a 3.5. It was not quite a 4, but it was close. And I can't wait to meet Maria Lewis because she seems really cool. Speaking of meeting authors, I'm also going to meet Maria V. Snyder, which I'm very pumped about. So I finally read Poison Study. Oh my goodness, you guys. Why did nobody tell me that this was so good? 5 stars. 5 stars. This is a story set in a fantasy world, and the main character, Yelena, has killed somebody and is imprisoned for that, and it's been like a year, and she is next on the chopping block to die. But the kingdom needs a food taster for the commander to make sure he doesn't get poisoned, and so the rule is that the next person to die cannot die and then die later when they get poisoned by taking on this job. So not being an idiot, she says, yes, please don't kill me. I will taste some food for the commander. There were lots of tropes that I expected but never came into play. No insta-love, no love triangle. I just really like it. This is marketed as a young adult, but I'd say it's more of a new adult. Again, mention of sexual assault. It's done in an amazing way though. I thought it was done wonderfully. But I would recommend this for people who A, loved Throne of Glass, because it's got Throne of Glass vibes, but it's different, so you're not reading the same story again. Or B, people who hated Throne of Glass. If you picked up Throne of Glass and you thought, yeah, this sounds really great, big ass main character, fantasy world, weird magic system, I'm into this, but then you read it and you were like, oh, love triangle, oh, insta love, oh, I don't like this. You will like this because this is just amazing. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. This is a great alternative to Throne of Glass. Both stories are completely different. My point being, I really liked it. I'm going to read the rest of the series. I'm going to get it autographed. I'm pretty pumped. Woohoo! I finally picked up the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series, The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan. I'm loving this series so much. I've seen some people complain because in the first book in this series, we got 3 completely different characters to any of the Percy Jackson books. And then in this one, we have 3 characters again, one of them being Percy though. And people are like, I don't know about these new characters. I love all the new characters. They're so good. Shh. And I think that's because Rick Riordan uses these books not only to explore like Roman and Greek culture, but also the like individual cultures of the characters and their backgrounds. And I feel like I've learned so much about like Chinese culture and Native American culture just from the characters. And I feel like the characters are just so well constructed that you have to love them. And there was never a moment where I wanted to put this book down. It was just really fun and great. It's just a lot of fun and I really love it. 5 stars. Another author that is coming to this convention that I'm going to is Lynette Noni. So I read her book You Cannae. This is the first book in a series of I think 5. It is about a girl named Alex who accidentally falls into a fantasy world and ends up going to this academy for gifted people even though she doesn't have a gift. She's supposed to have a gift. It's a whole big thing. It's a really interesting world. It's very reminiscent of like Narnia and Harry Potter and stuff like that. And Alex is a pretty cool character. I think the main reason though that I didn't completely immerse myself in the world and completely love Alex was that a lot of the story is told to us rather than shown to us. I think if you look at this like a younger YA, it's not necessarily middle grade. I think you'll enjoy it if you're a little bit younger. I'm not sure whether I'll pick up the next book in this series. It's coming out. I think it's called Rayella or something with R. And this cover is just really freaking pretty. Look at it. Oh my gosh. Another fantasy book that I read was The Book of Lies by James Maloney. This is an Australian author and I'm trying to read more Australian books. Lynette Noni, by the way, Australian, and Maria Lewis. So yay for Australian authors. This is a middle grade fantasy set in a fantastical kingdom. There's a boy named Marcel and he finds himself in an orphanage, but he can't remember where he came from. It's got something to do with this book called The Book of Lies that's controlled by this guy who's like the master of the books. He's like a sorcerer. The Book of Lies is a really apt title for this book because you never know who is telling the truth, who is lying. Even when people are telling the truth, you're not sure what their agenda is for that truth. It messes with your head a little bit. It is a slower paced book. I gave it 3 stars, but I really enjoyed reading it 1 chapter at a time. I did feel like Marcel lacked a little bit of depth of character, but I really liked the character B. There's a character with my name, Nicola. I liked her eventually. It's like, of course there's a character with my name that nobody likes. Lovely. I have the next 2 books in this trilogy and I will be reading them because I really like the way this unfolded. It was just such an even pace throughout. I think this is a perfect book to read like a chapter before you go to bed. And to finish up the 2 comic books that I read, the first was my TBR jar pick of the month, which was Why the Last Man Unmanned Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan, Pia Guerra, and Jose Mazan Jr. Oh my gosh, I remembered all of that without looking, you guys. Wow. This is the story of Yorick and Ampersand, and they are the last 2 living male mammals in the world after all the dudes die of some horrendous virus. And nobody's quite sure why these 2 are alive or what causes the virus, and it follows a bunch of women from all over, but mostly America, dealing with this. I had extremely mixed feelings on this book. I liked that the last man in the world is a bit of an idiot. Not because I hate men or anything, I just thought it was funny that he's kind of a moron. And we basically get a cult of women who call themselves the Amazons who hate men, have decided that this is the cleansing of the men and they're all gone, and they're just extreme misandrists, and a lot of people I think have taken offense to this. But I come from the Stephen King school of the apocalypse, where there is always a crazy cult, and I'm just glad it shows the dangers of a misandrist, man-hating ideology and how people cling to stuff in times of trouble. Now, I didn't mind that because obviously that's not written as like, this is all women or this is the perfect way to be. But I feel like if you've got something that ridiculous, you need to anchor that with normal women. But the rest of the women were mostly hysterical. There was like politicians, scientists, and soldiers, and all of them were so extreme, and the only person that we were grounded by was Yorick, who's a bit of a moron. He's the voice of reason, and I don't understand how that works. I'm not 100% sure where it's going. I gave it 3 stars, and I may pick up the next one at some point, but it's not a series that I'm like gonna be rushing to finish. I do like Brian K. Vaughan. Runaways, which is my favorite comic ever. He did a few years after this, like in 2005. This was in 2002. Even that is so much more progressive than this and so much better writing. The art style didn't particularly grab me, and to have just women and have them all drawn the same way was really irritating. Also, as I said, this was published in 2002, so you're gonna get some stuff that's not kosher anymore. Things that people say, gender terms, that people now would skewer you with a giant fork for saying because it's rude. I don't think that comes from a place of malice. I think it's just ignorance of 2002, because we live in a very different age of comics right now, and I'm not saying all comics are progressive, wonderful, and great, but this is kind of a little bit more old school. Speaking of women in comics though, I did also read Bee and Puppycat Volume 1. Bee and Puppycat was created by Natasha Allegri. I believe she created Fiona and Kate, the gender swapped versions of Jake and Finn. I love Bee and Puppycat. It's a web series on YouTube on Cartoon Hangover, and it follows Bee. She's beautiful, look at her, I love how she's drawn. She's like 22 or something, and she's trying to adult, and she doesn't have a job, and she's trying to take care of herself. And then she meets Puppycat, who is like half puppy, half cat, and she adopts him, and he transports them to this fantastical world where they take on temp jobs for money. It's the most fantastical, beautiful thing. This one is kind of like a bunch of snapshots. I wouldn't recommend reading it without watching the series because a lot of it won't make sense. But there's a variety of different artists and artwork. It's just a story where they fly a kite, and it's just nice. And there's no point other than them flying a kite, and it's just really nice and fills your heart with glee. So I gave it a 4.5. I don't think it's the most approachable comic for new people who've never heard of Bee and Puppycat, but if you love the series, I think you will like this a lot. No! Why? Why is this happening to me? These are all the books that I read in March. I was supposed to also read Sailor Moon Volume 1 because I picked it out of my TBR jar, but I didn't get to it, and I'll probably read it today, but I'll just talk about it in my next wrap up. Let me know in the comments below what you read in the month of March, and if you've read any of these books before and what your thoughts are. I've been considering switching to the make a video every 5 books that you read, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what I want to do. I don't know if that's how I want to live. I don't know, man. So I might try it next month, might not. Who knows? Who knows? I'm gonna go start reading Sailor Moon because I actually forgot about it until this video. I sat down and I was like, crap, I didn't even read one of my TBR picks. I'm such a sham. So I will see you next time. But in the meantime, go watch Bee and Puppycat. I'm gonna leave a link to it below. It's just such a sweet cartoon. Female creators. Yay!